While Mr. LaFontaine had been fortifying Taveta itself, British military planners had built up a pair of military bases closer to Voi. Close to Bura, Lettow was built and manned by the King's African Rifles. Meanwhile, further from Bura or Voi, and closest to the German-captured Taveta, was the East African Mechanical Transport Corps at Mbweni. The unit was a mixed European Indian ethnicity of those already living in British East Africa. When war began, these volunteers in Nairobi with motorcycles were placed under the command of Lieutenant A.F. Duncan. The Europeans were volunteers with a mixture of different firearms and their own motorcycles. Some sources cite British Governor Belfield, and the military planners at Nairobi felt the Indian volunteers, self-named as simply the Panthers, as unnecessary, but this did not deter them. Instead, many of them followed their patriotism and signed up as logistical and administrative staff for the East African Mechanical Transport Corps. They were deployed to Lettow and set up a patrol of their own at Mbweni. Unhappy with the German reconnaissance from Taveta, von Lettow Vorbeck visits Captain von Prince's position. While the performance of his troops had been less than satisfactory, he did find positives. In his words, he found von Prince fortifying Saliada Hill, 8 miles further into British East Africa, and the lack of communications had been addressed, with the improvised telegraph nodes being crafted from broken bottles. Von Lettow Vorbeck returned to headquarters, still lacking intelligence, but happy with the enthusiastic situation. From their camp at Mbweni, the East African Mechanical Transport Corps patrolled the path for any German traffic. They had no combat exchange for 10 days and continued to carry out their mission. They were able to see the Germans fortifying Saliada Hill and were able to report it back to Nairobi. On the 25th of August, a German assault was made against the camp at Mbweni. Unlike the picture of the Great War painted of swathes of men being cut down, both sides recorded no casualties in this action. This would change 4 days later on the 29th of August. At 7 a.m., a patrol of 3 British motorcyclists heard gunshots nearby. The motorcyclist went to investigate, Scout Goodwin taking the lead and the other 2 following in support. The wise discipline worked out when the motorcyclist came up on Ascaris. As the motorcyclists closed to engage, a second party of Germans sprung their ambush, and the German officer hit Scout Goodwin. His comrades retired to escape the ambush and report the German activity. Continuing to Lettow, they reported the ambush to the British base commander. Lieutenant C.G. Phillips took a strong patrol of the King's African Rifles in a lorry to investigate. Following the intelligence, they were able to track the site of the ambush and confirm it, with vultures circling above the tall grass, which hid Scout Goodwin. Goodwin's tobacco tin had absorbed the bullet, and the crash left him concussed. Though wounded, he would make a full recovery and continue to serve throughout the war. On the 3rd of September, a second German attack at Mbweni was more successful, causing the men of the East African Mechanical Transport Corps to scatter into the brush with or without their motorcycles. The action in the sources fails to mention the number of kills or wounded, but now the Germans had made further gains into British East Africa and captured some motorcycles and supplies. The motorcycle patrols were later found to have mixed results. While fast and reliable, they suffered from broadcasting their location with their loud engines. The East African Mechanical Transport Corps would be relegated away from reconnaissance to transports, and the Panthers would be used to reinforce their numbers. Further reconnaissance would be carried out by other more traditional units. The Germans, meanwhile, were relying on enthusiasm and infantry tactics, which for now was paying off.